breaking news from Lebanon.
Just a short while ago, there was a massive
explosion has torn through the Lebanese capital, Beirut.
The blast struck with the force of a 3.5 magnitude earthquake.
Following decades of government mismanagement and corruption at Beirut's port, on August 4, 2020, one of the largest non-nuclear explosions in history pulverized the port and damaged over half the city. The explosion resulted from the detonation of tons of ammonium nitrate, a combustible chemical compound commonly used in agriculture as a high nitrate fertilizer, but which can also be used to manufacture explosives. The cargo of ammonium nitrate had entered Beirut's port and had been offloaded into Hangar 12 in Beirut's port. The Beirut port explosion killed 218 people, including nationals of Lebanon, Syria, Egypt, Ethiopia, Bangladesh, Philippines, Pakistan, Palestine, the Netherlands, Canada, Germany, France, Australia, and the United States. It wounded 7,000 people, of whom at least 150 acquired a physical disability, caused untold psychological harm, and damaged 77,000 apartments, displacing over 300,000 people. At least 3 children between the ages of 2 and 15 lost their lives. 31 children required hospitalization, 1,000 children were injured, and 80,000 children were left without a home. The explosion affected 163 public and private schools and rendered half of Beirut's healthcare centers non-functional, and it impacted 56% of the private businesses in Beirut. There was extensive damage to infrastructure, including transport, energy, water supply and sanitation, and municipal services, totaling $390 to $455 million in losses. According to the World Bank, the explosion caused an estimated $3.8 to $4.6 billion in material damage. The explosion also resulted in ammonia gas and nitrogen oxides being released into the air, potentially with toxins from other materials that may have also ignited as a result of the explosion. Ammonia gas and nitrogen oxides are harmful to the environment as well as to the respiratory system. The destruction is estimated to have created up to 800,000 tons of construction and demolition waste that likely contains hazardous chemicals that can damage health through direct exposure or soil and water contamination. The United Nations Development Programme has estimated that the cost of cleaning up the environmental degradation from the explosion will be over $100 million. The evidence, as currently known, raises questions regarding whether the ammonium nitrate was intended for Mozambique or whether Beirut was the intended destination for the material. The evidence currently available also indicates that multiple Lebanese authorities were, at a minimum, criminally negligent under Lebanese law in their handling of the Rosas's cargo. The actions and omissions of the Lebanese authorities created an unreasonable risk to life. Under international human rights law, a state's failure to act to prevent foreseeable risks to life is a violation of the right to life. In addition, evidence strongly suggests that some government officials foresaw the death that the ammonium nitrate's presence in the port could result in and tacitly accepted the risk of the deaths occurring. Under domestic law, this could amount to the crime of homicide with probable intent and/or unintentional homicide. It also amounts to a violation of the right to life under international human rights law. Smoke rising over the state of an explosion. Human Rights Watch details the evidence of omissions and actions by officials that, in a context of long-standing corruption and mismanagement at the port, allowed for such a potentially explosive compound to be haphazardly stored there for nearly 6 years. The very design of the port's management structure was developed to share power between political elites. It maximized opacity and allowed corruption and mismanagement to flourish. Evidence indicates that many of Lebanon's senior leaders were informed of risks posed by the ammonium nitrate and failed to take the necessary actions to protect the public. Official correspondence reflects that once the ship arrived in Beirut, Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Public Works and Transport officials failed to correctly communicate or adequately investigate the potentially explosive and combustible nature of the ship's cargo and the danger it posed. The Lebanese Army Command brushed off knowledge of the ammonium nitrate in Hangar 12, saying they had no need for the material, even after learning its nitrogen grade classified it under local law as material used to manufacture explosives and required army approval to be imported and inspection. Despite being responsible for all security issues related to the munitions at the port and being informed of the ammonium nitrate in Hangar 12, military intelligence took no apparent steps to secure the material or establish an appropriate emergency response plan or precautionary measures. All of this was done despite repeated warnings about the dangerous nature of the ammonium nitrate and the devastating consequences that could follow from its presence in the port. Witness to the tragic event, Elias Tarabay remembers August 4, 2020 clearly. He arrived home after having a late lunch with a friend. He was living in Beirut, the capital city of Lebanon. His house had a balcony that looked out at the city's ports. Just as he settled in, he heard a loud explosion. I was watching TV. I remembered the first explosion. I ran to the balcony and saw actual smoke coming out of the silos. I knew there was an explosion in the port, so I started filming with my phone. Tarabay was working as an editor for a local newspaper at the time, and he thought he would take the video to send back to his office. They can run it on our online website or something, and after a couple of minutes of filming, the big thing happened, he said. A second large explosion rocked the Beirut port. It looked like some sort of a crescendo and light, he said. A friend was staying with him at his 2-story home. The whole thing collapsed on us, he recalled. Had they been outside on his balcony, they would have fallen as the balcony was gone. Fortunately, they were inside his living room. The only thing I remember is waking up. A couple of seconds after the explosion, I can still taste the whole gravel thing under my tongue. When the explosion happened, there was a disbelief. This is the worst thing that we've ever witnessed, and people across the religious divide were affected, so it wasn't like one community over another. What do you think about this explosion? Do you believe something like this could happen in the USA? Tell us in the comments. Also, watch the 2 videos that are on your screen, because I'm sure that you'll love them. With that, I'll see you in the next video.